Chris, the one piece that I would emphasize, because I've heard it a couple times on this program, that the idea that they've criminalized giving people bottles of water. They have not. What is in the statute, what is absolutely clear, is that they're preventing political organizations from giving people in line things, meals, water, what have you. Water is and should be provided at the poll for people who are standing in line. We need to be very careful about what we're talking about here, because Democrats have entirely misrepresented what's happening.
Well, wait a minute, Josh. In fact, it does say that it bans providing water or food to people at the polls. Why would that be? I mean, I know one of the arguments is, well, if people are at the polls, then an advocacy group can go and it's like you're near the election line and you're able to electioneer them. My gosh, people have been driving people to the polls of both parties for years. In a lot of African-American communities, the lines are longer because there are not enough polls in those communities. Are you really suggesting that it should be wrong to provide water or drinks to people waiting online to exercise their democratic franchise?
No, I'm not. What I'm suggesting is wrong is to suggest that the law does that.
Well, that's what the law says, Josh. That's what the law says, Josh.
It doesn't. Chris, it very specifically says that it can't be provided by political entities seeking to one way or another, influence an outcome of a vote. And I think there's a significant difference between that. And you talk about people getting rides to the polls. Absolutely.
What's a political entity? A person with a T-shirt? A person with a union T-shirt? A person with a gun rights T-shirt?
Well, I think what you saw in Georgia and many other states were examples of organizations that were funded to the hilt by dark money from liberal entities across the country, attempting to try to intimidate or at least provide some presence at the polls. Now, you can argue whether that's the worst thing in the world. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But there are states, like 6 or 7 states currently, that we're not talking about, that already have that on the books.
Imagine being so desperate to try and disenfranchise people of color that you'd actually show up on national television to defend a law criminalizing giving people water while they stand online to vote. This is Josh Holmes, who of course worked for Mitch McConnell, claiming, completely erroneously, that this new law out of Georgia says that water can't be provided by political entities seeking to influence the outcome of a vote. Only that is not at all what the law actually says. The actual section of SB 202 says, "No person shall solicit votes in any manner or by any means or method, nor shall any person distribute or display any campaign material, nor shall any person give, offer to give, or participate in the giving of any money or gifts, including but not limited to food and drink, to an elector, nor shall any person solicit signatures for any petition, nor shall any person, other than election officials discharging their duties, establish or set up any tables or booths on any day in which ballots are being cast." Now, Holmes is claiming that the text of the law says that it's there to prohibit political entities seeking to influence your vote, but that's not what the text of the bill actually says. The first part of that sentence prevents people from soliciting votes, and then it says, "Nor shall any person give or offer to give food or drink." That is a separate prohibition, just like the following part of the sentence about soliciting signatures is a separate prohibition from the first two, and so on. So I get that it's convenient to pretend that they're the same thing, but purposefully misreading that text isn't going to manifest a new meaning. Holmes is making it out to seem as if the law only applies to political entities expressly looking to influence your vote, as if there are people out there trading assurances to pull the lever for one party in exchange for a water bottle. I'm not sure what planet he lives on or where he votes, but generally handing someone water after they've been waiting online for 8, 9, 10, 11 hours, as was the case in and around Atlanta, is not some vote solicitation, it's common courtesy. It's called being a human being. Nowhere else in this country would you refuse someone water, and yet suddenly it's a misdemeanor to give someone water on lines that only months ago lasted as long as 11 hours? The only thing that's criminal here is this law. And by the way, yes, this is classified as a misdemeanor, but misdemeanors aren't as innocuous as they sound. Georgia's criminal code generally provides that all misdemeanors are punishable by a fine of up to $1,000 and incarceration in a county jail for up to a year. County jail for up to a year for giving someone a drink. This is what Republicans in Georgia think that democracy looks like. Holmes even goes on to try and justify his position by claiming that this is all necessary because liberals have been attempting to intimidate voters at the polls. Right, it's the liberals, and the way that intimidation occurs is by handing someone water. Seriously, what kind of revisionist history is this? The right has a long, sordid past of voter intimidation. Here's Beto O'Rourke explaining this very phenomenon rearing its head just in the last midterm cycle.
I'll tell you this, in the days leading up to the midterm elections in 2018, you probably remember this, Donald Trump was raving about an invasion of the United States from, poor, sick, tired, and scared asylum seekers from Central America. He tried to whip up a frenzy of paranoia and anxiety because he was worried about his prospects or his party's prospects at the ballot box. But in El Paso, on election day, and here was, a candidate from El Paso who had a very good chance of defeating Donald Trump's stalwart Ted Cruz in Texas. His Customs and Border Protection, the Border Patrol component of that, was organizing crowd control exercises in an 85% Mexican-American city where you have many mixed immigration status families. Now, why the fuck would he be doing that? Why? And I've lived in El Paso almost all of my 47 years. I was born and raised here. I've never seen Border Patrol crowd control exercises. There's no need for Border Patrol crowd control exercises. Why in the world would you have Border Patrol crowd control exercises on election day? Well, for one reason and one reason only, and that is to try to suppress voter turnout in this community.
So let's not pretend that Democrats handing water to people who've been standing online for almost 11 hours is even on the same planet as conservatives' efforts since the 1800s to scare, deprive, and intimidate people of color from exercising their right to vote. And any suggestions that they are the same are as offensive as they are misguided. Let's just be honest about who this law seeks to hurt, because it isn't a secret. We can work backwards. Who would be in need of water? Probably someone who's been standing online for a really long time. And who stands online for a really long time? Statistically, it's people of color. According to a recent study out of Georgia, at precincts where minorities constituted more than 90% of voters, the average minimum wait time in the evening was 51 minutes. At precincts where whites constituted more than 90% of voters, the average wait time was 6 minutes. So you can reasonably assume that by taking away the ability to hand someone water while standing online, that is expressly aimed at hurting minorities. But sure, this couldn't possibly be Jim Crow 2.0. So whether this law will even stand in the courts remains to be seen, but regardless, the Republican Party has just given the entire electorate the perfect reason to show up at the polls, and that is to vote against the people who think that democracy means criminalizing water. They may have thought that this would help them, but all they've done is mobilize an entire state, if not an entire country, to find a way to show up and vote however they possibly can. To see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell. And please subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I not only break down the biggest stories of the week, but I also interview major players in the world of politics, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, Jamie Raskin, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.